What world secrets have actually been revealed? Whether the Titanic sank in one piece or not, many discounted those survivors who said they saw her split in two because they had a hard time believing such a mighty ship could rip apart like that. It wasn't until Ballard and his crew found her that the truth was revealed. And speaking of Ballard and the Titanic, the only reason he got financing to do the search, he had made several attempts before, but logistics, schedules, and financing made each attempt fail, was the US Navy wanted him to search for two nuclear subs that had sank in the 60s. They agreed to secretly finance his search, and if he managed to find both subs, he could use the rest of the money and time to search for the Titanic. He found all three on the same expedition. Also, it was dark once the lights failed. Really dark. Have you ever been on the open ocean on a moonless night? Yes, it's creepy, and awe-inspiring, and creepy. I'd imagine hard to see at the water level. Ships and planes never mysteriously vanished in the Bermuda Triangle. Sinks sank because of rough weather, and planes dropped because they hit airborne pockets of methane and the engine stalled. Thanks to modern navigation, not a single ship or plane sank there in over 20 years. Just like quicksand, the Bermuda Triangle was one of those things I thought I'd have to worry about more in life as a kid. Statistically, no more ships' planes have disappeared in that region than anywhere else. I read once that the number of ships that crashed sunk there was due to it being one of the more popular routes on Earth. It's one of the most popular routes on Earth. Any ship that wants to go from the east to the west coast has to go through that, since it's right next to the canal. Torosaurus was actually a mature Triceratops. Nanotyrannus was a baby T-Rex. Stygimoloch and Dracorex are younger Pachycephalosaurus skeletons. Anatotitan was a grown-up Edmontosaurus, and I think there was a few others just because baby dinosaurs looked drastically different than adults. I miss Brontosauruses. Brontosauri, named Lori. Shel Silverstein, anyone? The bloop sound that was recorded in the Pacific Ocean that baffled scientists was finally found to be an ice quake. I have a silly and weird feeling of sadness knowing this is no longer a mystery. It's been one for so long. Next you'll tell me the wow signal was just space dust. The mysterious trails of rocks at Racetrack Playa in Death Valley National Park, California. For many years, the cause of these mysterious rock movements was unknown. However, in recent years, scientists have discovered that the rocks move due to a combination of wind and ice. During periods of rain or melting snow, water freezes into thin sheets of ice on the surface of the lake bed. When the ice breaks apart, it can be moved by wind, and as the ice sheets move, they push the rocks along with them, leaving behind the distinctive trails. The pioneers used to ride these babies for miles. How to make gold from lead. Hundreds of years the alchemists tried it unsuccessfully. Today it is possible using a particle accelerator. However, it is far from cost efficient. Mining gold is orders of magnitudes cheaper. All you gotta do is wait for a star to explode. Spontaneous generation. People used to think flies would spontaneously appear from rotten meat, as every time they had it, flies somehow would appear even though flies were nowhere close when the meat was okay. After observation and experiments, we understood flies landed in the meat, left their eggs, and then more flies would be born and then stay to eat the meat. I actually learned how Louis Pasteur figured out it was false in science class a few years ago. First, he set up 3 swan-necked beakers and placed a small piece of meat in each. Then he poured water in one of them so that the water stayed in the dip, but didn't touch the meat so that nothing got in or out. He placed a bit of wool in the dip in another beaker so that air can pass through but not solids can. And he left another one empty. After a few days, Pasteur checked up on these again and found maggots on the meat that was exposed to solids, and it was rotting as well. The meat only exposed to air was rotten, but no maggots. And the meat not exposed to anything wasn't infested, nor rotten. Still wouldn't be fresh though. Such Pasteur was able to prove that spontaneous generation was indeed false. We've only explored 10% of the ocean. We don't know what's out there. Yes, we do. Water and rocks. Probably some obscure species of sea worms, crabs, and the like as well. Maybe another abyssal giant or two. I do still hold out hope for a deep sea giant octopus and more hydrothermal vents. Those are pretty cool. But like aliens or megalodon type stuff? Nah, the thing with megalodon type stuff is that if it was there, we'd know without having to see it. For example, back when the megalodon was around, whales were smaller. They couldn't afford to be so massive. But when the megalodon died out, whales started getting bigger because they could. If they had some giant giant thing eating them, they'd probably get smaller again. How caterpillars become butterflies. When I was 12, I wanted to go university to be the first person to discover how they do it. Once caterpillars have a cocoon, they secrete an enzyme that turns them into a puddle of stem cell filled goop, and then that becomes a butterfly. WTF. So they essentially kill themselves and a new thing is born from their gore? Even weirder. They don't make a cocoon to wrap up in. The casing they're in is literally their skin. Imagine you're a bug and you shed your skin periodically so you can grow larger. One day you shed it, but all that's left underneath is a limbless, blind sack. You cannot move, cannot scream. Your internal organs melt inside of you and reform into a completely different shape. You burst from your old skin as an unfamiliar creature. The two ships of the lost Franklin expedition of 1845 were both found in the last decade sunk in the Northwest Passage, northern Canada. The mystery of what happened to the crew, on 26 men I think, has been speculated upon with plenty of solid theories, but very few remains have been found. The ships are still being examined and may contain more clues. Stendec plane crash. Late 1940s, a British plane flying in South America sent out the message in Morse code 3 times. Stendec then vanished. Found in the 90s to have crashed underpowered into the side of a mountain and buried in a glacier. It was a huge UFO conspiracy theory for years, and the mysterious message was most likely a generic message for the airport they were headed to, only mistranscribed at the time. The location of King Tut's tomb, which was finally found in 1922. Was anyone looking for King Tut's tomb? It was a good find due to it being intact. It was intact because he was minor and comparatively poor, so no grave robbers at the time bothered with it. There were attempts of robbery, and it is suspected that some robbers at the time have been caught and were then killed. Apparently, it was also later hidden by debris. It is true that his grave was less luxurious than what was usual because his death was really sudden. He died at 19 years old, and there was no time to construct another one. They were looking for tombs in general and found one intact, which was spectacular. Like they knew tombs like this existed, just not one that hadn't already been pinched. Tut's tomb was robbed, most likely early after sealing, like most of the king's tombs. But a rock slide in the valley covered the tomb and its location in huge rubble, and whoever broke into the first time didn't want to bother with new challenge. Photos in situ from the discovery show a relatively raided antechamber, so they grabbed what they could carry essentially after breaking in, intending to return for more. Nat Geo does this amazing docu-series, The Lost Treasure of Egypt, that really breaks it down, including that it was, as you mentioned, less opulent than others, and new evidence suggests that the decoration of the tomb was hastily done. That, coupled with his young age, I think, tells us he hadn't really been able to prepare for his tomb, at least not the way someone like Ramses II had the time to. The Easter Islanders disappeared, including theories that they cut down all the trees to make rollers for the Moai. It's a totally fabricated theory by Jared Diamond, as the Easter Islands never cut down every trees. In fact, they didn't even use rollers to transport the statues, and they never died out. Their descendants are alive today, with some of them hired as tour guides on the island itself. I still don't know why everyone asks, why don't we have flying cars yet? Think about the average American driver. Now give them a pilot's license. I think about this all the time. Hard enough to keep people in a well-defined lane. Let's let them fly over things. Yeah, those people don't realize that we already have flying cars. They just look rather different from road cars, are subject to heavy government regulations, require special training and licensing, and can only take off and land from specific, usually government-regulated locations. It's called a general aviation airplane, and they've been around for at least 100 years now. Haven't seen this, and since I'm so late to the party, it'll probably not be widely seen, but the mythical creature known as the Chupacabra has been identified as a wolf-coyote crossbreed. Location of major sightings was found to be basically a no man's land between wolf pack territory and coyote pack territory. Most likely an outcast from each species met in the middle and had a messed up baby. Since the genetics were kind of messed up, they would typically have mange, causing it to have little to no fur. It could also have the jaw of a wolf, but the mouth of a coyote, causing the creepy and unique look of having its front teeth awkwardly stick out, which is just caused by its teeth being too big for its mouth. things actually do look pretty wicked. You can find videos of them on YouTube, and some of the tamer pics of people catching killing them you might find on creepy posts or videos could actually be real. It would hunt livestock like cows and sheep as their easy prey, what with being caged up and all, but the part about it being a bloodsucker was just folklore. While it is an ongoing process and we have not nearly all the answers, I would argue some of the most fascinating discoveries have to do with the mystery of space and its exploration. It is basically a journey from the Earth is not flat to Earth is the center of the universe to the sun is the center of the universe to there are other planets next to the sun and the Earth, to the entire universe is a static mix of stars and nebulas, to the detection of other galaxies. First one was Andromeda Galaxy, to the detection of the true scale of the universe, which contains billions of galaxies and is vast beyond imagining, etc., etc. And every year, and with every new project like James Webb 2 years ago, we gradually get more and more knowledge about life in the cosmos over a span of 13.8 billion years. How crazy is that? I reckon in our lifetime, we will solve the dark energy and dark matter mysteries and many more. But until that happens, a lot of stuff that happens in space is fascinating and not really explainable. I like the saying, there is magic, but it's not in Hogwarts, but in space. At least for the time being.